Good afternoon, guys, and today I got another species profile, this time on Acer grandidentatum, commonly known as the Bigtooth Maple. This species grows as a small tree that rarely gets taller than 40 feet in height and frequently doesn't even top 20. In fact, in more arid microsites, it often grows more as a large shrub than a small tree, but it's really its leaves that set it apart. Like most maple species, they have leaves that are palmately lobed, but they're a bit different on this species, and different to being rather dark green and having just free lobes and being kind of small in size. They're sort of these like rectangular shapes, sometimes getting even wider toward the tip rather than the triangles that narrow towards the end of a leaf like you see in other species. And they got these large teeth at the ends of them, hence the name Bigtooth Maple or grandidentatum. Acer grandidentatum has a very unusual distribution. I was quite surprised to learn what it was at first. It's found in the western United States, like most of the plants I'll talk about on this channel, where it is quite common in Utah all throughout the state, especially along the diagonal spine of the Rocky Mountains and the Central Plateau region, extending northward into easternmost Idaho and westernmost Wyoming, and just barely into Montana. To the south, it is common in Arizona throughout the state, as well as southern New Mexico and scattered areas of Texas, as well as a few places in northern Mexico. But outside of this area, it is almost completely absent from the western United States. It is barely found anywhere in Colorado, save a few scattered areas in the southwest of the state, not in northern New Mexico, almost completely absent from Nevada, and absent from all of the west coast states and everywhere I didn't mention within Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. I have no idea why this is. There's certainly ample, adequate habitat for it throughout the western states, especially in Colorado and northern New Mexico, where it grows very well when planted. So no one really knows for sure. I guess it's just one of those mysteries of biogeography. Within its native range, though, it grows in the mountain brush zone between 4,500 feet and 7,500 feet in elevation, typically more cool, slightly wetter aspects of the mountain brush zone, but does grow quite commonly with gambel oak, which I've mentioned many times is sort of this tree's partner in crime. They very frequently grow together. It does seem to do better on north-facing slopes and in canyon bottoms, anywhere where there's a slightly cooler, wetter microclimate. It also does very well in full sun and shade, as well as growing in rocky, well-drained soil, and unusual amongst the maples, does very well in alkaline or basic soil. That's pretty uncommon for maples to do. Acer grandidentatum within the genus Acer is found in section Acer series Saccharodendron. Now, Saccharodendron is a series of 7 species in total, most notable of which is the sugar maple Acer saccharum. So in a sense, Acer grandidentatum is like a diminutive sugar maple that became adapted to the arid western United States. The entirety of the series Saccharodendron is endemic to North America, with some species being found only in Mexico and parts of Central America. There's not a lot of species you'll mix it up for in its native habitat. There's very few other maple species that grow out here, most notably Acer negundo, the box elder, but that's pretty easy to tell apart, and though it's a riparian species, so you might see it in canyon bottoms. Acer grandidentatum isn't really a riparian species at all, but they might grow somewhat so close to each other. They're pretty easy to tell apart because Acer negundo grows much taller, has a very white bark, and of course its leaves are compound. They are not palmately lobed. I'm not saying they're palmately compound, but they're sort of just like trifoliate, but it's a very big distinguishing factor amongst it and this species, and a lot of other maples as a matter of fact. And then there's Acer glabrum, which is the Rocky Mountain maple. That species, I actually wouldn't blame you for mistaking this for, though it's still not too hard to tell them apart. Acer glabrum grows more as a shrub at higher elevations. And I said a species can get shrubby sometimes, and it does, but Acer glabrum is much more of a shrub. Its leaves are also sometimes compound, but not always, but more importantly, they generally have much more fine teeth all along the margin of the leaves, and I think they can be even smaller leaves on average. Otherwise, though, there's not a lot of other species you'll mistake it for. As with all maples, this species has opposite leaves and branches, as you can see right there. So each leaf is generally paired up unless it falls off, as are our branches. You can see a good example right there, unless of course they also fall off. They have flowers of usually pretty highly exerted stamens and anthers, and when it's time to fruit, they produce these winged samaras that are paired up. Now, If you wonder what samara is, that's basically just a winged fruit that's designed to flutter and fly away as a form of wind distribution. If you're wondering what this tree can be used for, well, you've heard me mentioning the sugar maples before. If you're wondering if that was a possible source of maple syrup, well, it actually can be used as that. You can tap the bigtooth maple and make some pretty delicious syrup out of it. The only problem is because these trees are so small and because they grow in drier sites than the sugar maple does, they don't produce a lot of sap, so you need to harvest a lot more trees to get an adequate batch of syrup, which is the reason why we're not really harvested for maple syrup ever. And of course, there's also all the other things that make the species important. It is a great tree that is very common within its range, so it's no doubt supporting animals. You can feed the deer. I'm sure other animals eat their seeds, provide shade, and leaves that fungi like to decompose. I always want to remind you people, it's important to remember species have value all unto themselves, and it doesn't quite matter if we get good use out of them or not. There's still something that are important about in each species. So thanks for watching and see you next time.